So one of the coolest movies of probably all time, maybe, and it still holds up today, special effects and everything, is the movie Terminator. All right, that's the movie that really launched Arnold Schwarzenegger's career. You know, the I'll be back. That's where all that came from. He had already done Conan. He already did, Pump and Iron. But Terminator is one that we really know. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger really came to be as an action hero as from the movie Terminator. When he became governor of California, he was a governator. So in the I'll be back thing that followed him his whole career. But there's a scene in that movie where he goes into a gun store. The Terminator goes into a gun store, and he's like, "This is the greatest gun store in the world. This would never happen in California. Every gun you could possibly want is on the shelf there in this gun shop." And you don't see it. You don't get a whole lot of screen time, but like you see, Arnold is playing with. He has the AR-180, and you see him. He locks in a magazine, he flips it over, and he releases the bolt, which you can't do on an empty magazine. You have to move the magazine out, and then you can let the bolt go. But anyway, we see him jamming that magazine into an AR-180. At the same time, the gun store owner, the guy who works behind the counter, he's pulling down off the shelf a Spaz 12. He kind of just lays on the counter. "Oh, that's Italian." He lays it down. You don't really see the Spaz 12. This now has become iconic. Shotgun. From Terminator. Where he goes into the police station. He's shooting up the police station, and Jurassic Park, things like that. Every video game you see the Spaz 12. Doesn't get a whole lot of screen time during the gun shop scene. But what does get a lot of screen time is the 45 Longslide. Only this one doesn't have the laser sighting. Here, take a look.
The 12 gauge autoloader.
That's Italian. You can go pump or auto.
The 45 Longslide with laser sighting.
These are brand new. We just got them in. That's a good gun. You just touch the trigger, the beam comes on, and you put the red dot where you want the bullet to go. You can't miss. Anything else?
Phased plasma rifle in a 40-watt range.
Hey, just what you see, pal.
So the gun that got all that screen time was that 45 Longslide. When I saw that movie as a teenager, yeah, I know. That was 40 years ago. But when I saw that movie as a teenager, I wanted a 45 Longslide. It's like a 45, only 2 inches longer. What could be better? It's a 1911 with more barrel, more slide, longer sights, more velocity. It's super. But this is the AMT Hardballer Longslide. Let's take a closer look at this sweetie. Let's get a close-up look at this gun. It's like I said, it's 40 years old. You can see quite a bit of dirt here. It looks like it's been stored, for a long time. Here, we'll flip this over. But you see that nice long barrel. Look at that. Looks kind of perfect, doesn't it? All right, but you can just tell by the trigger. There's a lot of dirt and stuff in there. So this gun's going to be getting a good cleaning before it goes to the range. But let's go ahead and see how it functions. All right, so AMT, the maker of the Hardballer Longslide, was Arcadia Machine and Tool. And if you look on Wikipedia, kind of a little history of the company. It says they're from Irwindale, California, but the gun is clearly stamped Covina, California. Probably not much difference. But the 45 Longslide, what AMT was kind of known for is they took guns and made them in stainless steel. At the time, nobody was using stainless steel. So this was the very first, AMT was the first to come out with a 1911 in all stainless. So 1977, that company originates, and then 1980 was when they came out with the Longslide. All right, so the Hardballer series, there's other models. There was like the Commando and things like that. But the Longslide was kind of the big one. That's the one that we see in the movie. Had a 7-inch barrel in the Longslide, obviously. But these came out in 1980, and that Terminator movie didn't come out until 1984. So this was kind of still a new gun at the time that movie came out. You know, want to be cutting edge, you want to have the newest, coolest. You know, you had that Spaz 12, you had, you know, the AMT Hardballer Longslide. So I think they're trying to do some modern stuff with that movie when they're choosing the guns that the Terminator would use. Now you see this gun, you know, when he goes and he shoots the wrong Sarah Connor, and then when he finally does put that laser beam on the real Sarah Connor's forehead, just as Kyle Reese comes in and saves the day and, you know, knocks the Terminator out and saves her, you know, for now. I don't want to ruin the plot. It's a 40-year-old movie. Go see it if you haven't. But let's go take a look at this AMT Hardballer Longslide, and we'll just kind of see. For one, we want to see, we've got a magazine in there. The first thing you want to check, hey, does it lock open? All right, so here's a function check. We can drop the slide with the slide release. Our slide release is working. We know our magazine release is working. All right, let's see how it feeds and functions with some dummy rounds. These are action testing rounds instead of dummy rounds. That's kind of insulting. They probably hurt their feelings. Let's just call them action proving rounds. All right, so we'll load those into the pistol. Just drop the slide, eject, eject. Oh, look at that. We got a misfeed. All right, look at that. So we can either go look at the magazine or maybe the gun itself. Or we can just try that again. Let me load this up and we'll try one more time. All right, now we've got that magazine reloaded with 3 action proving rounds. Okay, drop the slide. Now, I'm not going to recoil it as fast as a gun would be when it's fired. Eject, feed, eject, feed. Well, it was supposed to eject. We're having trouble with that last round. Maybe we'll take a look at the magazine. We can try it with the other magazine. Let's just load a couple rounds in here. We'll try the other magazine, see if that's a gun problem or if it's a magazine problem. All right, drop that slide. All right, look like we're having some difficulty ejecting on that last round. It's doing it from both magazines. All right, now that's not live fire. That's just me pulling the slide back, and maybe I'm not aggressive enough. That slide would come back a lot faster, a lot harder after being fired. It is recoil operated, and I'm not gonna. I know I've got some pretty strong arms, but I'm not 45 recoil strong. So we see it feeds, we see it stops on that empty magazine. I think these are good enough to take to the range. All right. This particular gun came into the shop. It came with these Wilson Combat mags, which are really good, high quality mags. You know, and they operate like they should. You know, with holding the last round open or after the last round's fired. But because it's 1911, even an old surplus, you know, this thing might be an old World War II or Vietnam or who knows. 1911s were around for so long. Even an old, just an everyday magazine is going to work in there. Any 1911 mag is going to work in your AMT Hardballer or even your Longslide. All right, so we know that any old 1911, you know, single stack 45 ACP mag is gonna work in there. And if you do want to have reliable, we can get something like this really cool Wilson Combat one. All right, so we know we're dealing with an empty gun here. The mag's out. It's been cleared, obviously. Well, here's a good time to take a look at all the different safeties that, you know, the 3 different safeties on the 1911. We go to that half cock, all right, and that freezes up. It's not going to fire. Run a half cock. If we go to that full cock, you know, there's that grip safety. I can't unless I squeeze that grip safety, right there. Now we can go. Well, the other one is that thumb safety. Thumb safety is engaged. All right, so we know all 3 of our safeties are working, so we can say this is going to be a good safe gun. It's going to operate like a 1911 should. All right, so now we feel good about taking this one to the range. All right, I'm not going to do a full detailed disassembly here on the video. We can do a quick little field strip. We'll knock this out. Just so you can kind of see that it does operate and function just like every other 1911 on the planet. But, you know, we can get a good look at. Oh, it is pretty dirty in there. We do see that long slide, you know, the op rod. Let's pull the op rod out. We'll get that. Take a look at that barrel. Ooh, look at that. Something. No, is that a stamp? No, it's a bruise. All right. Okay. But it does look. Ooh, looks nice and clean. The barrel looks clean. The gun itself, we got quite a bit of yuck. We got quite a bit of yuck in there. So before we take this to the range, we will give it a good clean. Like I said, I'm not gonna do that here on this video because you guys have seen 1911s cleaned, but you know we're pulling out some pretty good dirt right away. You know, so we'll take a look at that ejector and we'll see that maybe we can have this thing feeding a little better and ejecting better than it was. But such a cool gun from this. So let's compare this AMT Hardballer Longslide to a 1911 A1. All right, and the first thing you see, you know, you can tell from across the room. Well, for one, yeah, it's obviously all stainless steel. All right, but if we look at just look, you know, you don't have that arch. One of the features I really like about the 1911 is that arch mainspring housing. I think that kind of fills up your hand a little bit better. We have that straight mainspring housing here. But we get into like the controls of the gun. I do like the extended trigger. I've got big hands. Moving that trigger a little bit forward, it's kind of cool. We have a much larger, this little bump here for the either your thumb safety, much larger thumb safety. And that slide release on the 1911 A1 is kind of small, much larger slide release on that AMT. So your controls much bigger, much easier to push down, much more comfortable. All right, you know, obviously we've got 2 inches more of barrel length, 7-inch barrel versus a 5. But the thing up on top, you've got adjustable sights. All right, that's kind of a top-end feature you see on a lot of your custom 1911s now. Is that big adjustable sights. The old fixed sights or drift adjustable sights from the 1911 A1. So huge improvement. You know, so if you start looking at this gun and its features, this should have been a huge success. You know, the AMT Hardballer stainless steel, it's not going to rust. You've got the bigger controls, you got adjustable sights. You know the hammer is almost the same. You got the extended grip safety. Why wasn't this gun successful? You know, you hear stories about, hey, there's sloppy tolerances, they weren't machined very well, whatever. There had to have been something wrong with the company because my impression is it's nothing wrong with the product. It may have gotten a bad reputation or they just did really poor marketing. I'm not sure. Or the company just wasn't run very well. But from my first impressions, it looks like a pretty good product. You know, it does look like an improved 1911. You took, the A1 was an improvement over the original 1911, and I think this AMT is an improvement over the 1911 A1. It was probably comparable to some of the more modern 1911s. But like I said, the company went out of business in 2001, so they must have had some kind of internal problem because their product does seem like a solid product. Hey, if you're still watching this video and you've watched all the way to the end, you saw this really cool gun, but you also know that I'll be back. I don't say it nearly as well as Arnold, but I will be back in the next video.